This is the place to be.
Yeah. This is the place to be. Yeah. Innovation Days.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Morten from Inkish. I have the pleasure of having my good friend Phil from XMPie here on Inkish. So welcome on Inkish.
Hi, Morten, and thanks for having me.
It's funny because I know that we have said hello to each other a lot of times, and we've also spoken a little bit. And it's funny because you, for me, is a brilliant representative of a software that I always loved a lot, and that is, of course, XMPie. For those who doesn't know what that is, maybe you could just give a very brief introduction, then we can dig a little bit deeper afterwards. But what is XMPie?
Well, XMPie is a great software platform that helps people communicate in many different ways. So we're all about driving relevant, personalized communications, whether it be print, digital media, or actually nowadays even enhancing technologies such as generative content from AI. But included in that platform, we also offer e-commerce as well. So we make it easy for people not just to send and receive communications, but to actually be able to place them as well.
I worked for Xerox from many years ago, and I remember, and I actually sometimes joke a little bit with the print OEMs about this, because it seems that the narrative about individualization and personalization and variable data seems to be the topic that has been discussed ever since it was possible to do, but still it seems to be a big challenge for a lot of people to do. How important is it, if you look from a printing company's perspective, to offer customer services like the ones that XMPie can help you get going with?
Well, I part of my job role is obviously working with different printing companies and some other customers as well. And it's quite, well, for me, it's really impressive to see that it's actually helping them become more efficient through automating, obviously saving them costs, but also allowing them to diversify by starting to add more value in what they do, which of course drives more profitable revenues, as well as completely new revenues that it unlocks as well. And I think for me, one of the things that I've said it many times, but we almost take for granted that digital print is actually, every single print is completely a digital, it's a complete digital master, if you like. So even if you're doing 10,000, 5,000, a million different prints, every one can be completely different and therefore personalized or relevant, which adds more value, even though the cost to the printing company after the cost of any software, it is essentially the same as if it had the same on for every single person.
Yeah. I get that, but the reason why I was asking was a little bit funny, not funny, but it was because I was thinking that when we as print OEMs years ago started talking about that added value to the personalized information, I think that intellectually most people understand, yeah, that makes sense, because as you say, you can make a million independent or different copies, and of course that has a different value because it can be targeted directly to an audience. But I still think that the majority of digital printing devices in the field are maybe more used for short runs rather than used for variable data. Is that something you have an opinion about, or?
I think there's been a trend over the last few years. We're seeing more shorter print runs, personalized print runs, but we're actually seeing much more relevancy, if you like. And that's one of the things that XMPie really sort of books the trend, because in the high volume space, you tend to find that personalization is kept to a minimum. And that's not really because of the technology, that's because the speed and the efficiency. And of course, XMPie being basically integrated into the Adobe space allows for very, very creative, very on-brand personalization, but at the same time being able to produce it at speed. We've seen that in the low-end space, small, much more targeted, much more relevant print, but we're actually enabling that in the high volume space as well, which is another reason for us exhibiting at Hunkeler Innovation Days.
And so if I asked you about whether the market is growing in personalized and let's say this space. Do you see a growth there, or?
In terms of volume, our customers are seeing growth. I think you're right in that the players that are into the high volume are doing big volumes, but I think where the growth actually is the smaller companies that are starting to become confident with what they can do and actually picking up more and more print campaigns that are very targeted, very relevant. And I think also we've seen quite a lot of focus by the press recently as well, in terms of print really being a very important blend of digital channels, particularly in marketing. I think it's fair to say that everybody gets inundated with marketing emails and social media messages. Print is that one thing that people still stop even now. They think about it. It's tactile. It's something that can work really well when it's blended as well as being on its own.
I can't help think about, because we have with English we have visited a lot of actually also XMPie customers, but we have also visited a quite big number of let's say companies that are really specialized in not only transactional data and transpromo, but also like really specialized one-to-one campaigns. So I get that 100%. The reason I was asking is just because I think that when I think it from my time when I was working in a printing company years ago, I was thinking that sometimes if you start advising customers of using personalized data, you also need to be a step ahead of your customers when it comes to understanding the technologies needed for it. So I guess that a lot of the work that you guys do is also, let's say, educating your customers in how to actually use XMPie and how to actually sell that as an added value to customers. Is that a right assessment, or?
Absolutely, yeah. We recognise that, and we do work and help our customers. I think what's also quite interesting nowadays as well is that although data skills are necessary to use data to drive content, it's become less and less the requirement to have really kind of high-end skills. And also we've seen campaigns, very successful campaigns, that have actually started with very little, or in some cases zero data.
First name, right?
Yeah,
For example,
and
right?
GDPR
Yeah.
has really forced that,
Yeah.
people to think about that as well. But I'm meaning in particular where blending digital, the web, for example, and print, you can actually start with somebody literally filling in a form online, and that can be a catalyst. And as part of that interaction process, you're actually acquiring and building new data. And so whereas maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was quite common for people to say, well, I can't do that because I just don't have enough data, or my data's not good. By actually blending print and digital, you can actually get better data to drive more relevant content and deliver what people want. And there's quite a lot of market research out there that says that actually people do want this content, but only if it's completely specific to them. So it is all about understanding what it is and having the right data.
And also you mentioned yourself the GDPR and the California Privacy Act and
Yes.
those kind of things. Is that something that you believe has, because unless you have an explicit permission to use your details in this kind of communication and marketing, there's quite some limitations still, right?
Yeah, there are, and I think everybody was really frightened in the early days. But of course, yeah. But of course, most of our customers tend to be delivering campaigns to known people, membership, that type of thing. So there's a legitimate interest,
like
I think,
loyalty cards and you're member of a shop or whatever, these kind of things, basically.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And of course, we always have provided that opt-out anyway, which is a necessary thing to do in that sort of format. But I do think that I still see quite a lot of applications that are sent out that are more door drop type things, where you're targeting a particular neighborhood or area, and therefore you kind of avoid the GDPR. We can enable that, but really our heartland is in the much more relevant, personalized space, which is why it doesn't tend to be such a problem because of the type of applications.
Looking at the platform, I mean, I have seen XMPie, some demos, and also online. I also participated in one or two of your webinars over the years. I think you're good at having relatively high frequency on webinars, right?
Yes.
But I was thinking that of course there's a learning curve to everything, but I think that you spend also some time on making sure that actually handling this kind of complex data with multiple sources of data, you do it in a relatively easy way, right?
Yeah, I mean, data fundamentally drives everything that we do, really. So we've got all sorts of wizards and things to make it a lot easier for people. And the platform as a whole, I mean, it's very modular and scalable, but for many of our customers that have been doing it for a while, they're actually hosting completely different types of data, so different data sources. And what's quite common is you might have a customer database, but then you can go and get additional data and bring it in, no matter what format that's in, link the 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 together, and then drive much more rich and again, relevant content.
At Innovationdays, where you are exhibiting, I was just thinking, because I mean, when you look at all the possibilities with data, as you obviously know more about than I do, but with all that things and the machines getting faster and faster, I was just thinking it requires probably more and more resources also on the processing side, doesn't it? Or is that just something that is pre-ripped? Or I mean, how dependent are you on having the fastest hardware in order to make the output?
Well, hardware is, of course, an important factor. But to be perfectly honest, one of the reasons that we get the efficiency we do is because we use this object-based architecture. So I mentioned before, we integrate into Adobe. So we're Adobe native, meaning that you can create any form of dynamic content inside of Adobe. And that gives you full creativity, typographic control, which you wouldn't normally see in the likes of data-driven content. We completely support all of that, but really where it becomes very powerful is the fact that we're working at the object level. So we're not generating a complete piece of print for every single person. We're actually only generating unique elements, and then it means that it can be assembled very, very quickly and efficiently as it's printed, meaning that really, although hardware is important, it doesn't really completely rely on the fastest hardware.
Okay, I guess that's good too, but of course that is up to also the, let's say, the printing companies offering these services. I was just thinking, everybody's talking about higher resolutions, a higher quality in images, and the faster speed. I was just assuming that probably needed let's say, faster processing, because I was also thinking that the more people get to know about XMPie, the more creative they also become, and adding difficulty layers to the variable puzzle, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a great sort of thing that we can do with not just controlling objects, but also things like an object can be a layer or a page. So the data can actually not just control the content on a page, but it can control which page you get or which version of a particular page you might get based on the data.
Have you ever seen a creative campaign where even Phil had to say no?
Not yet, but I'm sure
yet.
I'm sure it'll come at some point. Okay. One thing that I did see that was quite impressive. We did an application which we showcased at Drupal, and it actually used avatars of people, like a comic of each person. That was actually integrating with a gaming platform that generates avatars for gaming. But for me, the real wake-up call there was that if we'd have talked about something like that 2-3 years ago, who'd have thought that something that's designed for a screen would be of the right resolution for printing? Amazing. But technology has moved on so fast, and now video games are high resolution, almost natural looking in terms of the avatars. It means that you can take those images that you would have completely discounted 2-3 years ago, and they can print in really high quality.
It is amazing, and it's funny when you mention it's a little bit unrelated to this, but when I was a kid, and maybe I think we may be the same age or something similar, I remember that we had our stereos and our cassette decks and our vinyl albums, and that's how we got music in the beginning, right? So my wife and I, we were very nervous because our kids never listened to music, we thought, kind of, right? And then we realized that all these gaming platforms are also being used to promote the newest music, right? So bands are actually participating. I know it's irrelevant to the topic of XMPie, but what I can't help think about is that it shows a little bit about how technology utilizes and also enables and also make it very different how we communicate. So the things that we took for granted from when we were kids are totally different today, right?
Very different. Yeah.
And it's just fun to see how things are going with that. Phil, at Innovationdays, what are you planning to show there?
Well, our focus is very much on programmatic print, which is what we've talked a little bit about earlier. And, the ability to very efficiently create printed content and make it completely relevant, on brand, very creative, but to be able to print it at speed, something that, traditionally has been difficult. Well, that's our focus. But of course, with our heritage in communications, not just print, talking about being able to go from print to digital or from digital to print. Of course, that's just, second nature to us to be able to do that. So it's very much about being able to demonstrate our creativity, efficiency in print, but also blending into different channels as well.
And that sounds super exciting. And is it like a demo where people get from A to C, how you in few minutes can achieve different results, or is it more like long sessions that people should plan for, or how have you?
No, so we're going to be able to both talk about it and demonstrate this capability, and we'll have some samples on stand as well. So I would encourage anybody that is interested in looking at how they can improve their communications, their efficiency, maybe bridging between print and digital, to come along and see us.
I think you should be way more direct. Just say that everybody that comes to Hunkeler Innovation Days interested in new technology should come by and buy a version of XMPie, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yes.
Then it would be a good show, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was, of course, a little bit of a joke, but I think that everybody who's looking into digital print obviously should look into XMPie, because it is definitely an enabler for higher profit and also, as Phil said, productivity gains, because you can automate some of the things that you would maybe try to find turnarounds or bypassing the good skills of variable data. So I think that it is always worth coming and checking out XMPie. So Phil, thank you very much for being part of this little teaser for our Innovation Days coverage. And I know we will see each other in Lucerne as well, and that's only like 2.5 weeks to it.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
I'm a little bit stressed now just saying it, but it will be great. Well, Phil, thank you very much.
No, thank you, Morten. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.